Andrew, thank you very much indeed. And now Dan Smith is going to put his own reflections on it. Secretary General of International Alert since 2003. And you've got his CV with you, written extensively on war and peace issues and on peace building and recognition accordingly. Thank you very much, Dan.
Shall I squeeze past you to the...
Yes, please.
That way I can see the audience can see me, and my blood moves around, and thus I'm able to talk to you. First of all, it's a great pleasure to be here, and secondly, it's a tremendous pleasure to follow Andrew Natsios and give some comments. But of course, my comments are going to be rather oblique to his. They will touch on definitely exactly that same terrain, but I don't think quick enough when I'm sitting down, let alone on my feet, to pick up specific points which Andrew made. Apart from saying that I agreed with so very much of what he said, I wanted to start, and I think that in a way Andrew encouraged me into this, with a story about monkeys. This actually comes out of some management training which we did in International Alert. And it was from the section of the management training from the part of the curriculum which is about organizational culture. And I don't know whether this experiment which I'm going to describe has ever been done. It sounds to me to be frantically cruel if it has ever been done, but I nonetheless found it instructive, and I hope you will. It's a kind of fable. Apparently you take a bunch of monkeys, let's say 5, and you put them in a room and you leave them there for a bit, and then you put a banana over at the side. And one monkey sees the banana and says, "Ah, banana," goes over for it, and you immediately drench the remaining 4 monkeys in ice-cold water. And they, what was that about? Meanwhile, 5th monkey eats his banana and he comes back and says, "Hey, what happened to you guys while I was away?" You leave it for a while, and then you put a banana in the corner of the room, and a monkey goes over there and eats the banana, and the other 4 get drenched with ice-cold water. And one of them said, "Do you think there's any relationship between this monkey going over there and us 4 getting drenched with ice-cold water?" So you let them stew on it for a bit, and then you do it a 3rd time. You put the banana there, the monkey goes over and eats the banana, and the other 4 all get drenched, and they say, "Aha! We have it." So the next time that the banana is put there, the banana monkey wants to go over there and get it. The other 4 all jump on him and beat the living daylights out of him. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? You put a banana there again, same monkey goes for it, the other 4 jump on him, beating the living daylights out of him, because now they're not getting drenched by cold water. So they're learning. But the banana monkey, sooner or later, learns, every time I go for that banana now, I get beaten up. This is bad. Now you put a banana there, and all the monkeys just sit in the middle of the room. None of them does anything. It's fine. Then, now it gets cunning. You take one of the monkeys away and you put a new monkey in. The new monkey is now in the room. Banana is put there. Monkey goes for it. The other 4 monkeys all jump on him and beat him up. Quite soon he figures out he mustn't go for the banana. Now you've taken away one of the other monkeys, put a new monkey in. New monkey sees banana, goes for banana. Other monkeys beat him up. Soon enough he learns. You keep on going with this process until finally you've replaced all of the original group of monkeys. You now have 5 monkeys in there, and however many more monkeys are put in there, each time a new monkey is put in, it goes for the banana, and the other monkeys beat him up and stop him from going for it. And none of them knows why they're beating him up, because none of them has experienced the cold water. But what they know is, that's what we do here.
Sounds just like England.
Sounds just like almost any organisation anybody has ever been a part of. I think that the whole theme of fragility and conflict throws a very interesting light on development and on what I will dare to call the development industry. And it really brings you up against, hard against some sharp questions. If one continues to think of developing countries, even not ones which are in the worst stages of being conflict affected or fragile, one continues to think of them as being essentially Sweden on a bad day. Sweden that has gone wrong and it just needs this and that fixed and given a chance and then it will move on. I think that what Andrew was talking about is relevant not just to the cases of Sudan and Afghanistan and Iraq, but much, much more broadly than that, not just to the extreme cases. This growing awareness, which I see in now amongst colleagues working on development, that the issues are not so easily fixable. What I dislike about that book, which was your birthday present, is not the bit that Andrew disliked. I dislike the word fixing. I don't think you fix failed states. I don't think you fix developing countries. I don't think you fix things. I think it's just more complicated than that. That kind of mindset is wrong. At the risk of simplifying, I think one discerns three broad models of development, of thinking about development and approaches to it. One was its economic growth, and therefore you do things like liberalization and so on, you get the economy right and everything else will move along. There can be disputes as to what the best economic recipe and so on is, but it's essentially economically led. There's a second one which is partly a reaction to that, which is no, it's a human process. And this drives the ideas of the Human Development Report, which apparently is now getting towards its 20th birthday. And it drives the idea also of poverty alleviation and also then of various other indicators, including many of those that are reflected in the Millennium Development Goal. And then a third idea says, well, it may be a human process, but it is actually fundamentally a political and economic social process of systemic change. And it's change in the system, which is what's needed and what motors development. Both of the first two ones, development as an essentially economic process and development as a human process focused on poverty alleviation, seem to lend themselves towards a technical, can-do, fixing, technocratic approach. I think in the first case it's fairly obvious. It's part of the limitations of the way in which we so often think about economics. I think in the second case, with poverty alleviation, I think the problem is that development, or rather development aid, then is seen as being a kind of extended humanitarian process. It's all about poor people. It's all about helping poor people be better. You cannot argue against that goal. You cannot question it. We will make poverty history. The question is, are we doing this right? Are we doing it wrong? It all becomes reducible to technical discussion about the right and wrong way, the effective and ineffective way of doing it. I think that the third way of thinking about it, which is very much associated with this book by North Wallis and Weingast, which you mentioned, which I'm also a great enthusiast of, thinks about it as being a much more complex, historical, long, subtle process. Of course, the economy is involved. Of course, it has an enormous human dimension, if not what is our moral basis for engaging in it. But the reality of that process is full of the question of power. It's full of the question of politics. And I think that in one of the features of fragile states or fragile situations, whatever they're called, or of conflict-affected environments, is that everything is political, because everything is about power. You just cannot get away from it. You took the example of a driving license. I'm sure there are dozens of other banal, mundane, daily examples of you want to have this, you confront power at the moment when you do. And therefore, if you're confronting power, you're confronting politics. And that, I think, is why institution building is so important, because institutions are how power is mediated and channeled. Institutional arrangements, rather than or much more reliably than person-to-person arrangements, are what make it possible that power actually is articulated in a way that supports the needs and the well-being of people, rather than always grinding them down. Good power rather than bad power, as Jeff Mulligan put it. To see it this way means thinking about institutions as being mechanisms of inclusion. They're therefore also mechanisms potentially of transparency and of accountability. And what this means is that, crucially, institution building, especially in the context of state building, but also more broadly, is not just about building capacity in a technical sense of that word. It is about building relationships. And when it's about the state, it's about building what is commonly being referred to as the social contract. Now, none of this is, I think, at the moment, particularly original. Maybe a year and a half ago it would have been, but I think the discussion is moving really quite quickly. And we come to that point that Andrew made right at the beginning about the gap between development theory and practice. And put a lot of these points across. Theory, yes. Even policy documents, yes, you'll find it there. But in practice on the ground, it's still lagging. And why is that? Andrew gave one reason, which I also am wholly sympathetic with, which is that it's to do with politics. It's to do with the arrangement of power. I think also when you look at the institutions of overseas development aid, it's to do with something else. It's to do with that moment when a report is delivered about the dilemmas created by the conflict between different political groups in, it might be Eastern Congo, or it could be Lofa County in Liberia, or it might be Burundi, potentially Sudan, almost any part of the country, and so on. And it's very interesting, and the development agency official reads it through and says, yes, that's great. What shall I do now? I know, I'll build a road. You see, the thing is that the monkeys don't do politics. That's why we call them monkeys.